Tiffany Henyard, the embattled mayor of Dalton, Illinois, and supervisor of Thornton Township, has found herself on the brink of political ruin after a series of scandals, public outrage, and a crushing political defeat. The once powerful leader, who had long used her political positions to consolidate power, is now facing the fallout of dramatic loss in a crucial election, setting the stage for what could be her ultimate downfall. This is not just a lost election. It's the unraveling of a career defined by lavish spending, corruption allegations, and political chaos. The breaking point came when Henyard was denied a spot on the Democratic ballot for the position of Township supervisor, a major blow to her political ambitions. The caucus that sealed her fate was held in Homewood, Illinois, and tensions were high as the first Democratic caucus in Thornton Township in decades unfolded. Organized by State Senator Napoleon Harris, the event became a political spectacle, with Henyard supporters, many of whom were allegedly using township resources, left waiting outside because the room could only hold 600 people. By the time Henyard's team arrived, the doors had already closed. What had started as a logistical disaster quickly spiraled into a political showdown, with Henyard supporters excluded from the process. The caucus, which began as a high-stakes political contest, ended in just 7 minutes, with Harris and his slate securing the Democratic nomination for the upcoming April election. That quick victory effectively dashed Henyard's hopes of re-election as township supervisor. When Harris's name was announced, the room erupted in cheers, but Henyard, visibly furious, accused Harris of running an illegal meeting, her voice trembling with frustration. She shouted, "You didn't run any of this the right way." It wasn't just anger, it was desperation. Henyard knew that without a spot on the Democratic ticket, her political future was uncertain, and her only remaining option was to run as a write-in candidate. A long shot at best. But that wasn't all behind the scenes. A new legal battle was brewing. Henyard found herself in a public clash with Dalton's village trustees, a political conflict that only deepened her downfall. The controversy stemmed from 2 meetings earlier in the year, which Henyard's team had claimed were conducted improperly. However, Harris and his team had followed the rules to the letter, meeting the requirements to secure the Democratic nomination. Henyard's complaints about the caucus process were swiftly dismissed. Harris's attorney, Burton, had made it clear, this is the process that has been in place for decades. It's legal, it's democratic, and it was executed properly. Henyard's claims of voter suppression and unfair practices were met with skepticism, especially given her history of bending the rules to her advantage. Henyard's political career, already marred by years of financial mismanagement and corruption allegations, had spiraled into chaos. Her tenure as mayor of Dalton had been marked by mounting frustrations from residents who had grown increasingly disillusioned with her leadership, or lack thereof. One resident summed up the sentiment perfectly. "She's done nothing but embarrass this community. It's time for her to go." While Henyard's time in office had been riddled with scandal, her response to the loss in the caucus seemed to confirm that her reign was coming to an ignoble end despite the overwhelming evidence of her political decline. Henyard refused to accept defeat. Her response to the devastating loss was characteristically dramatic. She stormed out of the auditorium, flanked by a small group of loyal supporters who, like her, were in disbelief over the outcome. As the crowd looked on, Henyard's exit was as loud as her entrance. But the reality was undeniable. Her political career, once characterized by controversy and power struggles, had come to a screeching halt. The truth was simple. Henyard's defeat in the caucus was not the result of foul play or voter suppression, but rather the result of her failure to meet the basic requirements for securing the nomination. Her accusations of unfair practices were dismissed, and the truth, though painful for Henyard, was clear to the people of Dalton. They were ready for a change. In the end, her resignation, though reluctant, seemed inevitable. The mounting frustration with her leadership had reached a breaking point, and it was clear that her time in office had come to an end. Henyard's political downfall didn't stop with the caucus loss. The growing scrutiny of her leadership continued to play out in the public eye. The residents of Dalton had made their choice, and Henyard's defeat at the caucus was just another chapter in her ongoing battle to retain power in the face of increasing opposition. Legal battles and public scrutiny intensified, leaving many to wonder whether she could salvage any semblance of her political career, or whether she would fade into obscurity, her name forever tied to the controversies that had plagued her tenure. The most recent political drama in Dalton was not just about a lost caucus seat. It was a stark reminder of Henyard's turbulent time in office, where scandal, neglect, and erosion of public trust had left an indelible mark on her political legacy. Henyard's dual roles as mayor and township supervisor had been used to consolidate power, but now, as the public's disdain for her leadership grew, it seemed her reign was over. The irony of Henyard's downfall was palpable. She, who had long been accused of shouting over others and dismissing dissenting voices, found herself now being drowned out by her constituents. As one observer aptly put it, karma, justice in action. For years, Henyard had ruled with an air of arrogance, using her positions to enrich herself and control the political landscape. But now, it seemed, the public was no longer willing to tolerate her excesses or her controversial leadership style. The public's disdain for Henyard wasn't limited to her political antics. Residents were fed up with her lavish spending, particularly when it came to taxpayer money. Her actions were a stark contrast to the values she had been elected to represent. The public's growing frustration had become too much for Henyard to ignore, and as her political career unraveled, so too did her ability to maintain control of the legal battles, combined with the public outcry, had effectively ended Henyard's political career. She had become a symbol of political dysfunction, and it was clear that the residents of Dalton and Thornton Township were no longer willing to allow her to remain in power. The upcoming April election, with Harris's slate now in control, would likely be the final nail in the coffin of Henyard's political aspirations, but Henyard wasn't going down without a fight. Even as her political career seemed to disintegrate before her eyes, she clung to the idea that she could still salvage her reputation. Her supporters, though dwindling in number, remained loyal, but it seemed increasingly unlikely that Henyard could recover from the damage done to her political image. In the end, Henyard's political downfall serves as a cautionary tale of how power can be abused and how the erosion of public trust can lead to a dramatic and irreversible loss of political influence. With the legal battles, the public's dissatisfaction, and the mounting controversies surrounding her tenure, Henyard's time in office had come to a bitter end. The future of Dalton and Thornton Township now lies in the hands of new leadership, and Henyard's name, once synonymous with political control, will likely be remembered as a symbol of scandal, failure, and the cost of abusing public trust. Tiffany Henyard, the embattled mayor of Dalton, Illinois, and supervisor of Thornton Township, has become a symbol of political dysfunction, facing intense scrutiny and mounting calls for accountability. The damage caused by her leadership is far-reaching, with financial mismanagement, legal battles, and growing public outrage that have made her once powerful position increasingly untenable. Henyard's tenure, marked by extravagant spending, a combative leadership style, and the erosion of trust in her administration, has left the community on edge, and a political future that now seems all but lost. Henyard's leadership has had a very real and damaging impact on the residents of Thornton Township. Financial challenges in the community, many of which can be traced directly back to Henyard's administration, have created a growing sense of disillusionment. Investigations into her spending habits have revealed shocking details, such as tens of thousands of dollars spent on first-class flights, luxury hotels, high-end dining, and a jaw-dropping $3,000 Amazon purchase made in a single day. This level of excess, particularly while the township struggled financially, has understandably left many residents furious. One landlord even filed eviction papers against Henyard, claiming she had not paid her rent, a development that further illustrated her disregard for fiscal responsibility. However, it wasn't just Henyard's extravagant spending that made her a controversial figure. It was also her abrasive and combative leadership style. Critics describe her as dismissive and controlling, often shutting down dissenting voices during public meetings. One former official even went as far as to label her behavior as bullying, stating that she views anyone who disagrees with her as an enemy. This aggressive approach alienated not just her colleagues, but also many constituents, leading to a growing number of residents who felt disconnected from their local government. Over time, Henyard's leadership became a flashpoint for frustration and distrust in Thornton Township. Despite these mounting issues, Henyard has remained determined to cling to power. In a defiant statement following her significant political setbacks, she announced her intention to remain mayor, vowing to continue her fight. This decision, however, has been seen by many as the ultimate insult to a community already suffering from her leadership. Her refusal to step aside, despite multiple scandals and an expanding legal cloud over her administration, has only added fuel to the fire. The legal battles surrounding Henyard have grown increasingly complex, with the FBI reportedly expanding its investigation into her financial dealings. Several of her close allies, some of whom are accused of engaging in fraudulent activities on her behalf, have come under scrutiny as well. One particularly damning incident involved a top police officer and Henyard ally who was recently indicted for bankruptcy fraud, further deepening the sense of mistrust surrounding her administration. A combination of reckless spending, a combative leadership style, and expanding legal issues has left Henyard in a precarious position. Her political future now hangs in the balance, with the people of Thornton Township growing increasingly frustrated and vocal in their demand for accountability. The public's calls for her resignation are growing louder, and it's clear that Henyard's grip on power is slipping. Despite her best efforts to hold on, the fallout from her actions may soon bring her reign to an abrupt end. The scandal surrounding Henyard doesn't end with her financial dealings. Her charity, the Tiffany Henyard Cares Foundation, has come under fire for failing to report how it spends its donations. The Illinois Attorney General's office has ordered the charity to stop soliciting donations until it complies with state regulations. This failure to follow proper protocols only added to the growing perception of Henyard as someone willing to bend the rules to suit her interests. Meanwhile, her use of township resources, including buses to transport supporters to a crucial caucus, has sparked further outrage. Critics argue that this is just another example of Henyard using public resources for personal gain. The backlash against Henyard has become a rallying cry for those who demand justice and accountability. Social media has been flooded with comments calling for her indictment and prosecution for government corruption. Just because she gets a Tiffany and her goons still need to be indicted and prosecuted for government corruption, one commenter wrote, echoing the sentiments of many who feel that Henyard's actions have gone unchecked for too long. The frustration is palpable, as one resident stated. You don't even have the sense to look in our eyes, but you'd rather just steal our money and do what you want despite the intensifying investigations and public outrage. Henyard remains defiant. In a fiery press conference after the caucus loss, she vowed to continue fighting, declaring, "The show will go on." However, many believe her words ring hollow. Even her staunchest supporters are beginning to lose faith, and the prospect of her winning as a write-in candidate seems increasingly unlikely. One ally, Keith Price, optimistically suggested that enough people know Henyard's name to write in on the ballot. But even he sounded uncertain amid Henyard's continued fight to remain in office. Former NFL player and businessman Napoleon Harris is emerging as a key challenger. Harris, who won a decisive victory at the Democratic caucus, is now preparing for the April election, focusing on the issues that matter most to the community. Harris has promised to bring transparency, accountability, and effective leadership to Thornton Township, qualities that many residents feel have been sorely lacking under Henyard's administration. Harris's victory at the caucus was a clear sign that the people of Thornton Township are ready for change and are hopeful that Harris can deliver on his promises as Harris moves forward with his campaign. Henyard's political career continues to falter. She has officially announced her re-election bid in a Facebook post, but this seems to mark the beginning of the end for her political aspirations. The mounting investigations into her financial dealings, combined with the growing list of lawsuits and public discontent, have left Henyard with few allies and even fewer options. The question now is whether she will continue to pour time and resources into legal battles that may never lead to a positive outcome, or whether she will finally step aside and allow the community to heal from the damage she has caused. The public's reaction to Henyard's downfall has been overwhelmingly negative, with social media flooded with comments from both residents and political observers who see her defeat as a long overdue reckoning. Many people view Henyard's fall from power as a form of poetic justice, with one commenter noting, "Tiffany often just shouts over other people in meetings. Now she's the one getting shouted down." This sentiment, described by some as karma and justice in action, has been echoed by many who believe that Henyard's actions have finally caught up with her. While there is a sense of celebration among some residents, there is also a growing sense of frustration. Many people feel that Henyard's leadership has done irreparable damage to Thornton Township, and that it will take years, if not decades, to undo the harm she has caused. One taxpayer summed up the sentiment perfectly. "We're going to be cleaning up her mess for a long time, but at least now we have a chance to move forward." The hope for a fresh start, free from the scandals and dysfunction that defined Henyard's time in office, is palpable, but it remains to be seen whether new leadership can truly restore faith in the local government as the election approaches. The question remains, will Harris live up to his promises and bring the kind of change Thornton Township desperately needs? Or will he, too, be derailed by the challenges of cleaning up the mess Henyard has left behind? Harris's supporters are hopeful, but the road ahead is far from clear. The people of Thornton Township are watching closely, and the stakes have never been higher for Henyard. The future is uncertain. The mounting investigations into her financial dealings, the expanding legal issues, and the growing calls for accountability all point to a bleak outlook. Will she continue to fight for her political survival, or will she finally accept the consequences of her actions and step aside? The community of Thornton Township is ready for change, but whether Henyard will allow it remains to be seen. One thing is certain. This story is far from over, and the future of Thornton Township hangs in the balance. Thanks for watching Celeb News.